Welcome to Subramani. Here is an experiment that I am doing. I am going to talk to you about my investment process, or rather the equity portfolio building process. So some things which I didn't have to do but you may have to do, and some things which I do which you can't do, right? So all these things will be there, so you have to be careful. So step 1, learn to involve the family. Make sure that your mother, father, wife, daughter, son, whoever is an important part of the decision making process understands equity, because if there is no buy-in for equity and the amount of money that you're putting in is significant, then when the markets are down, they will chew your brain and you will sell it completely at the wrong time, right? So one very important thing is to know when to sell. And you cannot wait for to see my tweets. I very rarely sell. I have not sold, let me put it this way, in the last 40 years that I have been investing, at least in the last 20-25 years, I have not sold any share because I wanted money, right? I have sold because I want to buy something else, because some other share is better than this share, so I've sold X to buy Y. But I have not sold to get money to do something else. Oh, I need to furnish my house, so I want to sell some shares. I want to buy a house, therefore I'm selling shares. None of this has happened. So no capex has been funded by my equity portfolio. No vacation has been funded by my equity portfolio. Nothing. Everything else in my life has come out of current income. So that's a huge advantage. If you are forced to draw down during a bad time, when people will come and ask me things like, oh, my mother is in the hospital and you're telling me I should not be selling equity. My friend, it's not that I'm saying don't sell equity when your mother is in the hospital. I'm saying you should have been smart enough to have adequate medical insurance, right? That's the solution, not this, right? So ideally you should never have to sell equity in a distress. That's been my huge single, if you ask me, that has been my one single large advantage of not having to sell my portfolio to meet any of my goals. No buying of a car, no buying of an office, maybe buying of an office, but that is in the 1980s, right? So last 30 years that has also not happened. Nothing. I have not sold my equity shares at all under distress. If I have sold, I have sold to buy something else. So it's not a sale, right? It is a switch. So therefore, be very careful. You should never have to sell equity in distress. You should, and the distress should not be caused by the family member saying, "See, market has fallen, Adani's share has fallen, Ambani's share has fallen." Doesn't matter. As long as you don't have to sell during a bad drawdown, your portfolio will make money. So get your family involved. So my lesson number 1 is to involve your family, make them understand the process, and also reward them. In the year when the markets have done well and you've got some 40% return or 50% return, withdraw money from equity. Tell your family, look, we have made good money in equity, so I'm withdrawing an X amount, and that amount could be, it has to be proportionate to your portfolio. So I know somebody who withdrew money to go for a Europe vacation for a family of 4. Must have costed him about 10 to 12 lakhs. Or maybe a little more than that, but he could remove it from his equity portfolio, and his family was very happy that this. So the family gets more involved, saying, wow, you should put money in equity, look at the benefits. Or it could be eating out. You could take your family to a 5-star hotel and treat them to a 15,000 rupee meal, right? 3 of you go and spend 15,000 bucks. This doesn't happen often. So you say, look, because the markets have done well, 3 of us will go and eat and real sumptuous food and have fun, right? So that's important, that you involve the family in equities. That is, I would think, step number 1. Step number 2 is to have an investment philosophy statement saying why you are investing in equities. This is again a family document. Your family should know why you are investing in equities. Largely, it is to combat inflation in your portfolio. Some of your money may be in debt investment, some of your money may be in real estate, maybe you have gold, and now you are also having equities, and you have been investing in index funds or been investing in mutual funds other than index funds, and now you feel that you should be doing direct equity. Again, I'm saying you could be in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, doesn't really matter, but you need to put in a process in place. And when you put a process in place, please write down the process involving your family. Maybe you dictate it into a machine and get it typed, or you type it yourself. I'm very comfortable typing, or record it and keep it in a video format. There is nothing which says your investment philosophy should be in writing, but it is nice to have it in writing, because in video your ability to store it, recall it and all look very difficult. So what should be the investment process? So first of all, define the universe in which you are going to invest. So here we are not talking of mutual funds, we are talking of direct equities. You are going to invest in direct equities, so I would suggest for beginners, your universe should be only India. You don't need to go and put money in the US markets and things like that. Stick to India. And very clearly, if you're not going to put a very big amount of money, very clearly restrict yourself to the top 200 Indian companies. You don't need to go beyond that. So your investment philosophy statement should describe the whole investment process. So first, what is your investment universe? So I would suggest that you stick to the top 200 companies. Second, find out the process by which you are going to identify the companies. Right? 200 is too big. So how are you going to identify? So first of all, create a mock portfolio where you could be copying the index. So if the index has certain industries, it has technology, it has banking, it has steel, it has oil, it has software, right? It has all that. So then you also need to create a portfolio in your head or on paper, saying all these have to be represented. I need to have pharma, I need to have technology, I need to have banks, so I need to have an insurance company, maybe I need to have one mutual fund, maybe one brokerage company, maybe one listed stock exchange, whatever. You create your own mental portfolio and make sure that portfolio is not beyond 30 companies. You don't need diversification beyond 30 companies. I'll soon be doing a video on focused funds, and focused funds look at only 30 companies. So if focused fund manager like a Roshi Jain is able to create value for you with 30 companies, 30 companies should be enough. I'm not even saying look at her portfolio and copy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you look at the index and copy, because the index, when there is a change, you can also make a change in your portfolio. After having said that, you said, okay, I will be in the index, and then you say, okay, in the index, I don't want to be in TCS and Infosys. I want to be in HCL and say some other company, right? Some happiness. I want to be in that company. I don't want to be in these two companies. That's fine. Choose your companies, but your weightage for IT cannot exceed the weightage in the Sensex. In fact, if anything, if you are deviating a lot from the weightage in the Sensex, you should have very strong reasons to do it, because here we are saying how to build a simple portfolio, right? One more thing is your aim could be very different. A fund manager could be looking for growth. You could be looking for a combination for growth and dividend. If you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you are looking for growth. In your 60s, 70s, maybe 80s, you are looking for dividend, right? So of course every return need not be dividend. Some of the return will come in the form of capital gain, but I'm just saying, a younger person may be looking for more growth and an older person may be looking for more dividend yield. So, but a younger person could be building a portfolio on dividend yield, because at a later stage that dividend yield will look very attractive. For example, I could get HDFC, hold your breath, at below par, right? Some 97, 98 rupees must have been the. So you should know within that universe how are you going to pick, because only when you know how you are going to pick, are you going to pick for dividend, are you going to pick for growth, all that, when you know how to identify companies for further research. Everybody quotes Peter Lynch saying, Peter Lynch said, buy the share of a company which you are using the product. For example, if you are using a lot of Colgate toothpaste, when I say a lot of, I mean everybody in your family uses Colgate toothpaste, then go and buy Colgate. No, that's not what he said. He said go and do research. So find out how you will buy an FMCG, bank, etc., etc. You already have defined your universe as the top 200 companies. Within that, you will look to replicate the index in terms of industry, not in terms of companies. If you're going to say, okay, I'm going to anyway replicate the index, you might as well go and put money in an index fund or an index ETF, right? So it does not make sense. So you say, okay, I will be this percentage in technology, this much in banking, this much in pharma, this much in FMCG, this much in entertainment, right? That you copy either the Nifty or the Sensex, so one of the two. Then how to evaluate individual companies. That is something which you have to learn. I'm not going to add too much value there, because today I'm not doing any great original research. After I look at some companies, some balance sheets, and suddenly I feel like buying something, I go and identify whom should I speak with. Here is a fund manager who is managing a pharma company, or managing a pharma portfolio, or an equity research kid who is just started off, and he's very good in pharma, so he understands the difference between a Lupin and a Sun Pharma and a Cadila, right? So I understand some bit of it which I already have. But something new comes up, I have no clue how much effort I'm going to put. So there I need to talk to somebody. That's what I said. In my process, some of the things you will be able to copy, some of the things you won't be able to copy. If you don't know whom I'm talking with and why that person is available to me, may not be available to you, then you have to be a little more careful about how you build your portfolio, or how to pick up that particular stock. But yes, you have to put a process saying these are all the things that I will see. I will talk about that in a little while. Then how much to allocate? This is portfolio sizing. That's again very difficult. So but you say, okay, I need IT and I will have 6 companies in IT, or I'll have 5 companies in IT. Then you know you have done portfolio sizing at the industry level. Then within that breakup is a little easier. So portfolio sizing you need to do. You need to monitor your investments. You have to check monitoring. I hardly do much today, because once the portfolio is built, monitoring becomes easier. I've said this earlier, but I rarely sell. In fact, I have not sold anything in the last 20, 30 years. So if I have not sold any share for any particular reason, any capex or wedding or anything like that, then the chances are that my portfolio would anyway grow. The investment, the dividends also keep going back into it. Other income also keeps going into it. So my portfolio has grown. But if somebody has to sell in distress, that can, one distress sale can completely ruin your last, say, 10 years, 15 years kind of return. If you are forced, suppose you were forced to sell some shares in March 2020, all the effort from 2010 to 2020 would be wiped off like this. So you should never ever have to sell equity in distress. So, and then now you have to find out how to keep improving. To improve, you have to keep comparing yourself as to how you're doing. Suppose you're underperforming the index over 3 years. It's time you give up this process and go into an index fund. Suppose you are doing as well as the index, then you stick on to it. If you're improving, if you're doing better than the index, there is no question of you doing anything other than that. So keep looking after your portfolio. I will make other videos speaking a little more about each of those things, but this is largely the process which you need to put in place. You will have to read a lot and write. I've always been saying, right from anthropology to zoology, you can read any book. I can read a book about let's say taking photographs of tigers and keep looking, comparing it to equity investments, right? So gardening, cooking, wild animal sighting, going into the forest, going into the water, in the sea, any of these things I'll be able to connect to investing and say what am I learning from here. You need to do that. You need to know what you need to keep learning and keep improving, and accept very quickly that you made a mistake. So your rules saying in these shares I'm going to trade, this is my trading portfolio and this is my investment portfolio, the two are different. And in my trading, if there is a 10% fall, I'll sell. In investing, if there's a 25% fall, I will sell. At some stage you have to sell, because the market is trying to tell you something about that share. So when I say I don't sell, I mean I have not sold for raising money. I have sold A share to buy B share. That of course I have done, but I have not sold shares to raise money for my expenses. That's what I meant. Or for buying any asset also. I have not sold my shares to buy a car. I have not sold my shares to buy a house. So my investment portfolio therefore has been luckier. You will have to build it over a period of time. So as part of the investment process, I said you have to create your investment philosophy statement, you involve your family, and the first step is to define the universe in which you are going to invest. I would think that you should restrict yourself to the top 200 companies, because building a portfolio is very difficult beyond that, right? You could go, when I'm talking of first top 100 is large cap, next 150 is mid cap, that is first 250 is gone, and after that there is small cap. I would suggest that you don't even touch small cap. Best way to enter small cap is to do an SIP in a mutual fund, because picking up 30, 40 companies, 50 companies is going to be 160 companies in case of Nippon small cap. Picking up so many companies is a nightmare. We will never be able to do it. So I would think you should stay out of small cap. So if you want to go beyond 200, it has to be 250, which is your large cap and your mid cap. Here you could take two views. One is to say, I'm not going to add any great value in large cap. So large cap, I will go to an index fund. But beyond that, I will do some stock picking. The other way to do is to say, okay, in large cap, the fund manager is not likely to add too much value. I will create my own large cap portfolio, but for my mid cap, I will look at investing in a mid cap mutual fund. So I'm saying here you are building your equity portfolio. So your large cap, you have decided that you will do it yourself. Your mid cap, you decide partially I will do, and partially I will do SIP in the mutual fund. And small cap, I will only do SIP in the mutual fund, and I will take a 20-year view on that, or 10-year view. Because for all the worst case, what happens in case of small cap is when there is a drawdown, the fall is the highest, and that is the time when you panic, right? It's about controlling your mind. That's very difficult in an individual portfolio. You look at it and say, oh my God, what has happened now? What will I do? For example, if you have invested in an airline which is going to declare bankruptcy or has declared bankruptcy, then you're constantly worried that, oh my God, what should I do now? But if it is part of a portfolio, then you're not so much worried, because the impact is much less than what you will feel if you're holding the share directly. So small cap, I would suggest mutual fund. Mid cap, you could do your own stock picking. Large cap, it's much easier to do stock picking because these companies are well researched. So if you want something on HDFC Bank, chances are you will find some 20 research analysts doing a job and putting out their recommendations, and it will be available. And it's a stable company, may not give a great return, but it is going to be a no surprise kind of a company. Nothing great, but nothing bad will happen. So having defined your universe, and there are other ways to define, is to say, okay, the company should have a 20-year dividend paying track record. Here what happens is you eliminate just very many companies which have fallen by the wayside. Every promoter you meet is very, very bullish about his company, right, or her company today, increasingly her company. They think they have got the next best idea and they are going to implement it, but there is a huge gap between having a good idea and actually implementing it. I know the case of a person who had invested in a company, a startup, where the CEO and the COO had a fallout. The COO went and joined a competitor and completely ruined this company, right? So suddenly these kind of things happen. That is the performance risk, implementation risk which is there. So you have to be extremely careful about when you're meeting promoters as to how much to believe and how much to see. Ultimately you have to have data, you have to have proof. So data gets time to get built up. So you're not a angel investor that you just keep investing without asking for questions. If you are a investor, and I'm only talking of how to build your portfolio in a large cap fund, in listed companies. I'm not talking of VC money and angel investment. In such cases, you have to be very careful. So my rules are very different. Company should have a 20-year dividend paying record. In the last 5 years, dividend should have increased. Now, when you take a commodity company, this 20-year track record is very difficult to establish. You can still get it. In fact, I remember when I bought Coromandel International, company was not paying dividends, company was in BIFR, it had just come out of BIFR or things like that was happening. The Murugappa group had just taken over, I think must be 1985, 86, 87, I'm not very sure. Right.